It is Tuesday evening, August the 26th, 2024, and in this video, I'm going to break down why you cannot trust people who do not know how to be a friend and do not know how to be a family. And it's not necessarily because they aren't good people at heart. It is because they have no idea how to help you, especially when you're having a problem or a crisis in your own relationships and in your own circumstances. And I'd like to start this video by asking you to take a look at this vector stock photo that I found when I Googled a generic family tree 2-3 generations, and tell me whether or not this is what you would have imagined if you had made the same inquiry. Now, if I say the word suburban, what picture comes to mind? Did it look something like this? Or this? Or this? If I say the word and pronounce it suburban, what picture comes to mind? Is it still the same? Or is it something like this? Or this? Or maybe this? Or this? I made this post earlier this evening, August the 26th, 2024. And I want to use it as an opportunity to share my thoughts on whether it is ever okay to profit from your own pain. All right, I came outside to record these old posters that I had strewn all over the yard last summer when I did a stoop ed display the entire month of June 2023, because I wanted to focus on these questions here. And one day I'm going to find all the pictures I took of those displays, because it was every day for 30 days. The entire yard and the whole porch was completely covered with signs like this, hoping that people would take pictures, and I know some did, and help me answer all the questions, but learn something in the process. But I want to deal with these two issues here. It is never, ever okay to profit from someone else's pain. But relative to your own pain, it is never okay to normalize pain, abuse, or suffering of any kind, ever. And if you think about it, why would you want to focus on your pain and sharing it with other people? A better approach would be to find people who share in the kind of suffering that you have endured and are escaping from or coping with or even beginning to heal from, and then together trying to address whatever the causes are so that no one else has to suffer the way you did. So if it's you and one other person, then you have two people who are fighting towards the cause and making people aware. And if the two of you are able to then find two other people who also have endured the same type of suffering, now there's four of you, and so on and so on. That makes sense, right? In a much more productive way to address what it is you have suffered and endured. But for people who can relate to your story, it's not helpful to then romanticize it as a method you use to cope with the seeming hopelessness of it from a time that there was no escape from it, as you write or share your narrative of the experience now outside of it or no longer having direct exposure to it. This is especially true if the experience of trauma is still unresolved And the people drawn to your personal narrative are still left in the same traumatic conditions you were able to leave or escape from. How did it end? Did it end for you? Has it really ended? If not, what then needs to happen to ensure it does so that the story has a happily ever after? Or have you given up on that as a possibility? If so, are you then contributing to the problem or to the solution and profiting from your pain? I was pulled into a debate once with someone I care about very much about abortion and a woman's right to choose and have control over her own body. Ultimately, we could agree that these two ideas did not have to coexist in the same box if the argument was that access to abortion supported one and the other when a woman was the victim of sexual assault and or abuse. We could also agree that it's unfair to force a woman to accept abortion as a contingency for body autonomy and personal control, but that is the political play card, isn't it? I posted this video on reproductive justice and breastfeeding this morning and included it in a statement about why Kamala Harris cannot be a spokesperson for women around these issues. She campaigns on the foundation of choosing a career as a prosecutor in the judicial system because her friend, not herself personally, was the victim of sexual abuse, and she felt and feels passionately about the injustice of that experience for her friend. But what evidence for that assertion do we have? That has been the case for Kamala, even in 2024. What precautions, prevention strategies, interventions, or reforms has she championed to protect young girls and women from sexual abuse or even exploitation? Helping the incarcerated to try to build a life after felonies they received after being prosecuted when those felons had been the victims of abuse would be noteworthy. But it is intervention far too long in implementation than girls and women need to feel safe, protected, and most importantly, in control of our own bodies, relationships, and lives. This is the generic picture of a lineage or a family tree to 3 generations that I was looking for when I did my Google search. It shows 2 sets of parents with their son and daughter who together have 4 children from the perspective of the one little girl to the left. And I wonder if this is also the picture that you had in your mind when you expected to see an inquiry result for the same thing. The significance of this is why I went back out to show the display questions I used during the month that I did the Stupid exhibition. I want to share with you some research that I was able to find on nuclear families, because that's what popped in my head as I tried to think about how to structure this message. A nuclear family, also known as an elementary family, atomic family, serial packet family, or conjugal family, is a family group consisting of parents and their children, one or more, typically living in one home residence. I want us to pay attention to this word typically because it means that it is not necessarily the norm. Ask yourself, who wrote this and what message did they want to get across? It is in contrast to a single parent family, a larger extended family, or a family with more than 2 parents. Nuclear families typically center on a married couple which may have any number of children. There are differences in definition among observers. Some definitions allow only biological children who are full-blood siblings and considered adopted or half and step siblings, a part of the immediate family, but others allow for a step-parent and any mix of dependent children, including stepchildren and adopted children. Some sociologists and anthropologists consider the extended family structure to be the most common family structure in most cultures and at most times rather than the nuclear family. I want you to consider for a moment what a normal biological family tree should look like and what ways data managers might be able to display the information in ways that show a family like this as a family tree. The term nuclear family was popularized in the 20th century. Since that time, the number of North American nuclear families is gradually decreasing while the number of alternative family formations has increased. The term nuclear family first appeared in the early 20th century. Merriam-Webster dates the term back to 1924, while the Oxford English Dictionary has a reference to the term from 1925, thus it is relatively new. The phrase is taken from the general use of the noun nucleus, itself originating in the Latin nux, meaning nut, i.e., the core of something. In its most common usage, the term nuclear family refers to a household consisting of a father, a mother, and their children, all in one household dwelling. George Murdoch, an observer of families, offered an earlier description. The family is a social group characterized by common residence, economic cooperation, and reproduction. It contains adults of both sexes, at least two of whom maintain a socially approved relationship, and one or more children, owned or adopted, of the sexually cohabitating adults. Does this look like a normal family tree? What inconsistencies can you find in this tree? Here's the definition from Encyclopedia Britannica's website for consanguineous kinship, which means common blood, where special kin-like relationships are known as fictive kin and excludes individuals who lacks ancestors in common. It is never okay to profit from the pain and suffering of another human being. It is probably unhealthy and unproductive to try to profit from your own. Either way, to focus on pain and suffering instead of holding accountable those responsible for pain and suffering so that it stops and never happens again, will have long-term consequences, not only for you as the individual, but for society as a whole, because it only takes one person.